Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Dutch Oven. We only have a few days left until the election of the President of the United States. Now, I'm not going to reveal who I'm voting for, but between a racist fascist who is a failed businessman and wants to have sex with his own daughter after giving Ukraine to Putin, contrasted with a strong, intelligent woman who has been elected to almost every job she's had, from district attorney to vice president, just saying. I actually interviewed Vice President Harris back in 2010 when she was DA Harris, and from that day I knew she was a woman of integrity and strength. Anywho, let's get on with the interview, which will be totally non-political. Here you go. I am very fortunate to be sitting with one of the funniest gingers to have ever lived, named Steve Hofstetter. Thank you so much for joining me, Steve.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks for having it be indoors at night, because that's safer for my people.
Oh, I completely understand. Is this your first time touring Europe?
No. I think this is my sixth.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've been here a lot. I think this might be my fourth time in Amsterdam.
Nice one.
I like it here a lot.
Yeah, you fit in. There's a lot of gingers, and there's like more tall people than anywhere in the world. So.
Oh yeah, it's when I was, especially the UK. Like, when I'm in the States, I'll get weird looks on the street sometimes. I'm at the point in my career where people recognize me, but they don't know how yet. Yeah. Because it's like you may recognize me from your inbox. And so, like, every now and then, when I'm walking in the street, people will kind of be like, they'll stop for a second. And then when I was in Japan,
oh, God.
I got weird looks just because I'm a 6'4" redhead. Yeah. And they were like, what is this monstrosity? And then in the UK and in Ireland... Yeah. I get weird looks on the street because people think I'm their cousin. So it's a very different type of recognition. Yeah.
Sometimes when I go to like Sweden or in these kinds of places, people talk to me in their native language. Do you get that too?
No. I think I wear enough American style things that I'm in like a button shirt now, but when I'm walking around, I'm usually in a hoodie with English words and American references, and like I think the vast majority of people aren't walking around Norway being like, that guy in the Mets hoodie is probably one of us.
Yeah, fair play. Would you ever want to live internationally? And after the November elections, if you need help, just let me know. I got your back.
I appreciate that. I actually have a theory that the reason our elections are in November is because when people are like, if things don't go my way, I'm going to move. And then they look at the weather in Canada and in Europe, and they're just like, I'm going to stay and fight.
Absolutely. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, so how do you insult Trump without offending all of the other mentally ill and disabled members of our society?
Well, I don't think he's mentally ill or disabled.
Okay.
I think he's terrible.
Mm.
Now, it's hard to insult him without insulting the other terrible people, but I look forward to insulting the other terrible people, so I'm okay with it. The real trick is insulting him without offending his base. Mm. There is a way to do it with words.
Oh.
Because,
They just go right over the supporters' heads.
Yeah.
Well, with Trump supporters being so dumb, I'm so sorry.
I'm not.
Is there any hope in your eyes for, like, uniting the country, or is this going to be a gradual...
I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but... Okay. I was touring in 2004 doing a good amount of material about being pro-gay marriage.
Awesome.
And people would walk out of shows. People would get up and leave offended. Those same people pretend they were never offended. Oh. Those same people 20 years later are just being, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. And because they want to fit in, at their essence, human beings are cowards.
Oh.
And at their essence, human beings want to be part of a winning team. And so the reason why suddenly there was this huge uptick in racism, hate speech, violence based on identity, etc., when Trump won, was because the people who had that simmering suddenly felt like, oh, now if I do that, I'm on the winning team.
Yeah.
And so it'll take a while, but I think eventually... progress is undefeated. Mm-hmm. It can take a few steps back here and there.
Fair.
But it is a diagonal sine curve. It does that, dips a little, does that, dips a little. And so I think that It'll take some time, but eventually those same people will pretend that they were always on the right side of history. It's the same way that, like, think about how many people of my parents' generation, I mean, my parents were progressive, but think about how many people of my parents' generation pretend that they always supported integration.
Ooh, yeah.
My dad was 22 when the Civil Rights Act passed, and there were plenty of people in the country who were very much against that.
Yeah.
Where are they now? Are they still going, well, I don't think black people should be allowed to be citizens or get married or have the rights that other people do? And they're just pretending. Yeah,
it's like, I'm going to keep that on the back burner and wait until there's a moment where I can express this all again.
Yeah, or they're expressing what they think is okay to express. And it's, whatever hate du jour is. Like, all these people who are anti-trans didn't know what trans was 5 years ago. And they act like, I've been fighting this battle my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is ruining women's sports. All right.
That whole argument.
Yeah. Name one WNBA player than Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. So emotionally involved. Yeah.
Exactly. No. So I think it is a matter of time. It's a matter of history moving forward.
Yeah. Good on you. So you've traveled the world, spent so much time touring the United States. Are there better places than others to perform with your kind of progressive political takes?
I grew up in New York City, and so by default, I have a very New York way of communicating. It's just the culture I was raised in. I find that I do particularly well in New York just because it's like, oh yeah, I know how to talk to you guys.
Sure.
And there are certain cities where, like, Seattle is probably my best market. Minneapolis, my second best. Denver, probably my third. And, part of that is just because of where my stuff went viral, or, Seattle has a very educated populace that also has disposable income. Those things add up to ticket sales.
Yeah.
But overall, I have a theory that there are good and smart people everywhere, and there are dumb and evil people everywhere. And I get asked a lot, like, what do you do when you perform in, like, I did a show in Warren, Pennsylvania, which is, 3,000 people, middle of the country. I don't mean geographically America, but the country, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
And they're like, well, what do you do when you perform there? I'm like, I perform to the few hundred people there who get it and who want to come see me. It's a self-selecting crowd. The benefit of today for performers is, all right, when people came to see Bob Saget, they often didn't know what they were getting because they were going to see the dad from Full House without realizing that he's one of the filthiest comedians we've ever had in a delightful way.
Oh, absolutely.
I draw because people watch my videos.
Yeah.
So they come to see me. They're not coming to see me because I was on a sitcom pretending to be somebody else, and then they don't know what they're getting. And so the vast majority, like at my shows, it'll be probably 95% of any given show will be either someone who knows my stuff or someone who came with someone who knows my stuff.
Nice.
Every now and then, someone will just be like, what's going on today? Let me wander into a show with having no idea what I'm going to go see. But most of the time, people know what they're getting. And so it doesn't matter where I am, my crowd comes out. And that is something that I'm very thankful for.
Nice. You touched on the virality of your videos, which is how I found you, as I'm sure thousands, if not millions of people have. And one of the big things that made you go viral so well was your reaction to hecklers and your ability to deal with them and put them in their little place. Now, has this become a self-fulfilling prophecy at all? Or, like, do you still get annoyed by hecklers, or is it more of a sport at this point?
So, I think those are two different questions.
Okay.
The self-fulfilling prophecy, it's the opposite. I get heckled way less than I used to. Because before anyone knew who I was just performing to whoever happened to buy tickets to that comedy club that weekend that couldn't afford a draw.
Yeah.
The comedy club that was trying to save money would then book me.
Yeah, for real.
And then a couple people would come in on tickets they won off the radio.
Yeah, raise discount comedy. Come on down.
Exactly. Oh, man. What a club. Yeah.
Too close.
The Chuckle Puddle where comedy reigns. That type of place,
Yeah.
And because of that, especially I'm doing progressive political material, I don't suffer fools, that adds up to two people in the audience yelling out. And now that most of my draw is people who know exactly what they're getting, every now and then someone will bring someone mouthy as tribute.
Oh, God.
Someone will just be like, Carol won't shut up. Let's invite her and hope something happens. But most of the time, it's people who everyone wants to see it, no one wants to be it.
Yeah.
And so when it does happen, which is 5% of the time, when it does happen, one of the first things I'll say, like, the warning shot is always like, this room wants blood. Like, you don't understand what you're walking into.
Oh, because the other hundreds of people know exactly what's about to happen.
Exactly. There's this, like, oh man, it's happening, you know? And so, like, usually it's just a warning shot, but we're recording this in mid-October. I haven't had a heckler since April.
Oh, wow.
This is probably the longest streak I've gone without one.
Yeah.
But, there was one guy that got a little bit mouthy at the beginning of the show. I intro my own shows. Mm-hmm. And, when you go up, it's like a warm-up before you see a television taping. It's not my actual show. It's just welcoming everybody, thanking them for coming. And this one guy yelled out, this was in Oshawa, Ontario, and this guy yelled out, "Oh, you have red hair. Are you from Ireland?" And I said, "You have gray hair. Are you from a long time ago?"
Oh, Jesus.
And that was the end of it. And during the show, he was silent. So
he just went like,
exactly. So that's the closest I've had to a heckler since April. Wow. And yeah, it's been, the more viral my stuff goes, the more people know what they're getting into. The other question was kind of like, do I enjoy it? Do I hate it? I enjoy that I can handle it. Mm-hmm. I'd rather just do my act. The material I'm doing right now, this tour, is about mental health, and it's about working through that, and it's the most vulnerable I've ever been on stage. And so would I want in the middle of that to be like, "Hey, shut up, man," no. Yeah. I just want to do the material I came to do. If it happens, I'm glad I'm ready for it. It's why you take a self-defense course.
Yeah, fair.
If you take a self-defense course because you want to beat the shit out of people, you're a maniac. If you take a self-defense course because you want to be able to defend yourself in case you need to, that's what that is.
Very cool. Nice one. Yeah, Doug Stanhope once said that, like, no heckler has ever made a show better.
No.
Ever. 0% of the time.
Yeah.
Who were some of the comics that influenced you or inspired you when you were coming up?
Well, I grew up watching or listening to, my dad would play me records of Dick Gregory and George Carlin.
Yeah.
And I actually got to open for Dick Gregory and invite my father along, which was the coolest. It's actually, this is a little heavy for this, but that's the last time I ever saw my dad.
Oh, God.
My dad passed away a couple months later, and the last time I ever saw him in person was driving through the Midwest with him and Dick Gregory, which was just... And it was his, and Gregory was his favorite comic. My dad saw him live when he was 19.
Yeah, well, Dick Gregory was also a very special human being, just aside from comedy. Like,
yeah.
Isn't he the one that released the Zapruder film?
I don't know that. If that's true, that's wild.
All right.
That I don't know.
Fact check later on.
All right, we're going to find that out. Yeah. No, that I don't know.
And it's the execution of President Kennedy. And Bob and Dick, would you please narrate what we're seeing as we show this film?
But yeah, he was a fascinating person to hang out with.
What a true blessing.
But yeah, that was really cool because, there's that never meet your heroes thing, and like, no, it was wild sometimes. The way that my dad put it was, with Dick Gregory, everything he says is either going to be the funniest thing you've ever heard, the most insightful thing you've ever heard, or the most batshit insane thing you've ever heard, and you never know which one it is until he finishes the sentence.
Whoa!
It was so much fun hanging out with him. Wow. But anyway, then later on, I got into, like, once I started understanding stand-up on my own, I think I was like 12 years old when that Rolling Stone piece about Bill Hicks came out.
Yeah.
Read that in a barbershop while waiting for my dad. There was just a Rolling Stone sitting there, and I was like, oh, I like comedy, and I just became a Hicks fan instantly. And then when I was it was either late high school or early college, I saw Mitch Hedberg's Comedy Central Presents.
He's my number one forever.
Yeah,
man.
I got super into him.
Yeah.
And there have just been, there have been tons of comics along the way, but I think those are the ones that influenced me the most.
Beautiful, man. Nice one. So you've been sober for 20 years now, right? Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
How has that affected your career?
It certainly helped. I mean, when you have no money, it's good to be spending it on one fewer thing. Or one less thing. I don't even know because it's not really counting thing, unless it's like, well, I spent money on 3 things, so that's fewer. Anyway, it was a good way to not blow the money I didn't even have.
Yeah.
But also, the reason I stopped was this is a really tough career. And it's hard enough to run this marathon without putting hurdles in your way. And I realized that drinking wasn't the problem. It was losing an hour the next day.
Ooh, yeah.
It was, because every time you do a show, someone wants to buy you a drink. And also, sometimes 30 people want to buy you a drink, and you got to do the math on that and realize I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I had a really good talk with John Heffron about this. He's sober as well. And he told me a story where he said, he was talking to his doctor, and his doctor was like, "Are you an alcoholic?" And he was like, "What? No, of course not." And he goes, "Well, how often do you drink?" And he goes, "I probably when I do shows." And he goes, "How many do you have?" And he's like, "I don't know, 3 or 4. He goes, "How often do you do shows?" And he's like, 7 days a week. And you do the math on that, and it's like, oh, okay, so you're consuming 20 to 30 beers every week.
Consistently.
Every week. Like, yeah, that turns out to be a lot.
Yeah.
So it's, and John Panette on an interview once, I heard him say, the reason so many comedians, because he was sober too, and the reason he was asked why. Yeah. Why are so many comedians sober? And he goes, well, a lot of us develop drinking problems because when you are by yourself in a motel in Topeka, you put a half a bottle of Jack in you and you forget that you're by yourself in a motel in Topeka. And so that's why the problem develops. But I found that, like, if I'm losing an hour to feeling hungover or even just feeling sluggish because you partied a little too hard the day before, that's 300 plus hours a year. And why do I need to be 300 hours behind the next person trying to make it?
Wow. That's kind of profound.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just to be clear, it wasn't the giant tattoo of Richard Nixon that you have that made you get sober. It wasn't the regret from that.
No. I mean, if anything, I would want to be sober to see it more clearly.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's
the detail.
Yeah, exactly. It's the when I was never one to send dick pics, but if I was, it would be a tattoo of Turkey Dick. That's really important.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time today, Steve. It really means the world to me. I've been following you for a long time. I sincerely appreciate anybody who has strong will and speaks their mind to really truth and speaks truth to power.
Thank you. And let me just say, by the way, your English is impeccable.
Oh my! Well, thank you. Yeah. Yes. I grew up in Portland.
Yeah, I kind of figured, but yeah.
Hey, mad respect. Hey guys, check out everything that Steve has done. Steve Hofstetter on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You're everywhere.
Not Twitter anymore. That's a fascist hellscape, but I'm on the others.
Yeah, avoid fascist hellscapes. What an interview that was. I'd like to thank Steve Hofstetter again for giving us his time. He's quite a funny, intelligent, and empathetic human being, and I'm grateful to have met him. There's no fake sponsor this week, but if you're from the States, please just take a moment to hear this message from our friend Stephen Colbert and the Center for U.S. Voters Abroad. Take care. Peace.
Hi there, it's Stephen Colbert here, and I have an important message for my fellow Americans who are living abroad. If you've received your ballot, make sure you cast your vote and send it back as soon as possible. Election Day is coming up on November 5th, and your vote can truly make a difference. Remember to follow the instructions on how to prepare and return your ballot so you can ensure your vote is counted. And if you have any questions, just head over to overseasballot.com for all the help you need. It's that simple, folks.